Good afternoon, everybody, or I guess if you're catching this on a playback, good morning or evening to you. This is the PGA DFS First Look Show for the American Express. Maybe one of the weirdest names of a PGA Tour event. It's not like the American Express Classic or anything. It's just called the American Express. But here we are. I am joined by Geoff Ulrich every Monday here for our PGA DFS First Look Show. This is the first time joining us. Thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe to get notified when all of our great PGA DFS content is coming out. And also, if you're new to this program, well, good. Thank you for joining. And what we do here is we go through a quick review of last week. I give you a couple of DFS tidbits. We review a couple of our top favorite pros. And then we go on and get right into this week's upcoming tournament. So, Geoff, are you happy to get out of Maui? Or I shouldn't say Maui, Hawaii. As sad as that sounds, like nobody ever wants to leave Hawaii. Are you ready for the PGA DFS to leave Hawaii?
Yeah, no, I am. The first three events of the year, they're okay. Like I kind of like the Tournament of Champions, but the Sony and the Amex are kind of, they're we get these like birdie fests, and you get a Pro-Am in there mixed in there sometime. No Pro-Am this year, which is nice, but they're a little bit more score fest. Just kind of eases the way into the season. I like the tougher, more elite fields for the DFS side of it, so I'm fine with it. I mean, let's do one more week of the the Amex, get a birdie fest, and then we get into the meat of it. Torrey Pines, Phoenix, Riviera, those are the ones I really like. So
yeah, I agree. I think last week, and we're going to get into that, I mean, when it's so high scoring, if you don't have some of the high scoring chalk or you've missed on a couple of guys, you basically have no chance, especially with last week in the 6 of 6 percentage, which we'll also get into. So let's go ahead and jump right in to our analysis of last week, and it's the trends continuing. That's our first topic. And Geoff, we kind of highlighted that we don't typically like to bet on trends. It's not normally profitable. But here is one where we're 9 of 10, where the winner from the Sony Open has played in Maui the week before. And it's something that we talk about a lot. We have to highlight because not only was it Kevin Na coming in first, it was Joaquin Niemann coming in second, plenty of other good finishes. And I think there was only 2 missed cuts, Abe Ancer and Richie Wierenski. I think most of the other people that ended up playing in both weeks made the cut. So what do you make of that? And is it pretty much just like, even though Kevin Na came in last, we got to play him because he played the week before?
Yeah, man, the trends early in the season, or it's not just this event, but especially for betting purposes, I really try not to like buy into them too much. But early in the season in the PGA, there's 3 or 4 events, especially Pebble Beach is kind of one of them. This week actually has a couple trends similar to last week too. They just always seem to work out. And Kevin Na, I mean, again, okay, he didn't do anything at the Tournament of Champions, but even you look back, he played well at the Masters. He was actually making a few cuts coming in. He just got that rust pushed off, and he was confident because he had the competitive experience. And I'm not saying that's the only reason why he won, but it has worked out that way so many times at the Sony that again, it's just one of those ones where you do want to pay a little bit more attention to it.
Yeah, for sure. Again, early in the season before guys get their footing, I think that these trends are certainly something to look at. So now I kind of tease this up at the top, the highest 6 of 6 percentage as we go into our second topic here. For me, I think a recent memory of it not being like a limited field event. Geoff, this was a full field, 144 players. And granted, Kevin Kisner made a 25-foot eagle putt on 18 to make the cut, a couple of other scenarios like that. 25%, 6 of 6. If you didn't have 6 of 6, you weren't cashing this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was, it's funny because I didn't really look at the cut percentages until like the weekend, and I knew they were probably going to be pretty high. But this was, you had Kisner, you had a couple other guys too, like that. Sung J M was just kind of
16. Yep,
was just exactly right. So it was one of those weeks where not only did you need like the low scoring dudes, the correct ones, but like you had to have 6 of 6 as well. So yeah, it was a rough week. I mean, the nice thing about it is if you weren't there, you realistically, and you pay attention to the ownership, you kind of knew like it was over after Friday. Like for me, it was pretty much over. So it was one of those weeks. It didn't like pull you back in with like a late run or anything and then break your heart. So it was okay.
Yeah, it's true. I actually shouldn't say if you didn't cash. I had a 5 of 6 on FanDuel cash, but that's because it had Simpson, Horschel, back-to-back Eagle Man, Ortiz, which let's talk about a couple of other performances from last week that I want to mention. Not only was it a high 6 of 6 percentage, Jeff, but
Yep.
pretty much everybody above Abraham Answer, not Abraham Answer, of course, because he missed the cut, but everybody above Answer hit value. So it didn't really matter who you put in, whether it was Neiman, Simpson, Morikawa, Berger, all of the studs hit. Even Harris English, he didn't crush you. He scored, I think, around 80 points, so he didn't really help you that much. But even him, if you had matched him up with either a Kevin Na or Chris Kirk, you were fine. So I think that made it even harder.
Oh yeah, no. The edges the last week were insanely good, like insanely. I mean, you just had no room for error. Berger was good. Like you said, he needed Na or Kirk or something like that for sure as like a low-owned dude. But the studs were kind of interchangeable, so you weren't really gaining any edge there. It all came down. It was almost like a 1v1 or 2v2 week. So it's crazy though, man. I mean, if you landed on Na, you were in a really good spot. Lower ownership and obviously Kirk up there too. Actually, Kirk was a guy I wrote up for the free Awesemo article as the GPP target. Unfortunately, the ones I had Kirk in were garbage. So it didn't help me, but hopefully it helps someone out there. Definitely check out the site as a free the approach article for Awesemo out there every week. If you're thinking about the site, you can at least take a look at that. Like I said, it's free every week.
Yeah, great call there. And Kirk, not only did he have a chance to win and really play well, stick in it, but he got his job back. I mean, it's one way to put it. He got his PGA Tour card back. He was playing out of that major medical exemption, had 14 starts to get into the top 125 last year's status, and he did. It's great. I think he's
he needed a T3 or better last week. Like what a performance. I mean, I actually didn't know that when I was watching. I was like, oh, Kirk's playing good. This is great. Didn't, like I said, not helping me, but it was great to see. I mean, I knew he was starting to play a bit better, was consistent, kind of like Na, coming in, like he had played good at the end of 2020 and he carried over. So, but yeah, it was a crazy story. He needed a T3 or better for the full status, and he got the solo, the second. Nuts.
Yeah, the T2
pressure performance.
Love that. And it's a good story too. He battled alcohol and depression, something certainly people can relate to, and made his all the way back. And it's a great story. Good to see Chris Kirk back on it. So all right, let's go into our DFS review where we go over a couple of snapshots and important things from last week. And we're going to start off with our first one here. It's the value and point section. The average last week on the was 8.5x. So that's pretty high for a standard average, especially a full field event. Very high. Kevin Na was your top value. No surprise, 19.8x. Chris Kirk was number 2, who we just mentioned, 18.6. And how about this? Brendan Steele is just showing us this course fit mentality, Jeff, that he just performs well on the same courses. Again, had a chance to win here for the second straight year. What do you make of that? Is that another trend that we should be looking at?
I don't know.
I know it's a tough question, but he keeps doing it to us.
Well, and look, like we have some things to go off of for like Kirk and Na, right? I mean, they were kind of playing a bit better, but like Brendan Steele was coming in off of like no form. Dude hadn't finished inside the top 60 in 5 straight starts. So it's very much like an Andrew Landry situation kind of thing. He obviously likes it here though. Steele's a dude who has done well like early in the year. He's actually played really well at this week's event too, a couple times too. I think he almost won this event one year. So good desert player, but I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like, a course history thing I would pay attention to from now on, with Brendan Steele. I'm not saying he's like a must player every year, but I think it was you who actually brought him up to me, wasn't it last week?
Yeah, just on a course fit thing, because
he
seems like the guy that can do it.
And I mean, look, the Sony it's a little quirky course, kind of like the Amex this week, and some guys just feel better on some of these designs. It's weird, but yeah, I mean, I do look at course history, things like that. I couldn't get there with Steele this week just because I'm not really like a huge Brendan Steele guy and his form was so bad, but if you went with course history, it helped you land on him. So, I mean, I can't sit here and poo-poo it or say it was like a terrible idea, because I think it is actually a good idea on certain courses, especially at Sony. We got so much course history to work off of still.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. A couple of more that I'll mention here. Matt Jones was a 16 value. Nick Taylor, again, showing up 15.75, kind of faltered on the weekend. Keith Mitchell, Kramer Hickok, and Peter Malnati all playing very well. Top points that I don't have listed in terms of value because they're higher price guys, as we already mentioned, Neiman, Simpson, Kazire, Horschel, all playing well. So let's move on to the optimal lineup here from last week. And stats were a little bit slower on updating, so I just had to write down instead of taking a fancy picture for everybody. The optimal lineup scored 761 points. We can go top GPP. Sorry, first, I apologize. Jordan behind the glass is going to let me know we're going to do the top GPP lineup first. And that's the winning one. So let's see how they did. And obviously, no surprise, it's had Kevin Na. It also had Chris Kirk. It also found its way to Matt Jones, which, hold a note on Matt Jones for me, Jeff. I want to mention him. But it had Berger and Leishman and Morikawa. Interesting that he really could have gone to Simpson and Neiman. It didn't matter, as we mentioned, in the top 4 that you picked. Just finding Na and Kirk, huge value there. Matt Jones, I want to mention him. He was actually one of the top values projected by Awesemo. I know when I made my lineups, he's not a guy that I focused on, but a guy I kept getting in my crunches. So interesting note there. Jeff, anything else you want to say about this lineup?
No, I mean, obviously, yeah, we both kind of at least thought about Kirk and Jones there, so that's kind of interesting. Kirk came up as a good value in Awesemo too. That's kind of why I target him. Part of the reason, anyway. So again, these tools on Awesemo, if you guys are interested in checking them out, they're valuable. Jason and I know use them every week. Na, a player I regret. I think I still have this thing in my mind where I just say, I just try to ignore Kevin Na because of the back thing. But at events like this, I don't think that's the right approach. So I kicking myself for not paying more attention to Na last week. Great to see Leishman playing better. Berger and Morikawa, don't need to say much about those guys. Everybody liked those guys. Leishman is a player. I think almost that's almost the most important one for me.
I think so too. I agree.
You really got to keep an eye on him. He's just a really quality player. And if we're going to get him a little bit lower ownership and going forward, lower prices, definitely something to watch for. He's another player, Jason, who really does well at this event every year. Like he's never missed a cut here in like 9 starts. So, yeah.
And we talked about him as being one of those guys that's like, we don't know where his form is, but when he's in form, he's going to be in the top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
And there it happens. He kind of does that, and he needed to. He was struggling outside of his 13th at the Masters. So good to see that. Okay, now let's go into the optimal review quickly. It did have Kevin Na and Chris Kirk. No surprise there. Joaquin Neiman was the top scorer, more than Simpson, more than Berger and Morikawa. Brendan Steele, Matt Jones, and Mark Leishman. So that 4 of the 6 did the winning lineup. So not bad there. Okay, let's move along here now to our first pro review, where we're going to take a look at some of our favorite pros and see how they did their allocations and such. So we're going to start off with our own Alex Osman-Baker, who had a pretty good week in the higher dollar stuff. I noticed he did 3 lineups in the higher dollar stuff, got 2 6 of 6 through, and cashed in both of them in a top 5 and 1. So while his lower dollar stuff or GPP stuff might not have been great, it was still definitely a profitable week. Here's maybe why it wasn't that profitable. I don't see Kevin Na in there. So when you're playing against hundreds of thousands of lineups, Jeff, and you don't have an 8% winner, it's a lot of lineups that are going to beat you, and that's the problem here. Pretty good other than that. Only, 2 missed cuts, I think, or 3 missed cuts out of his top 15. So pretty good allocation. But again, when you don't have the winner, it's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, he might have had like a break-even kind of week just because he had such a good cut percentage, although there was a pretty high 6-25, like you said. So it was one of those weeks where you probably, a little bit disappointed that you couldn't have found a winner and really taking advantage. But, the Kokrak, nice call. Yeah, I
thought the allocations, the one thing that I had note, maybe outside of the players, just to note, he seemed to use a lot of players, which I think maybe took a little bit away from a core perspective. He only had 2 or 3 golfers over that 20% mark, where typically for Alex, he's playing like 6 or 7 guys in that range. So I think maybe he spread it a little thin this week. If I had to analyze, his player pool when I was looking at it.
And he did go overweight on Hideki. Hideki obviously lower ownership, so maybe that led into some of it. Adam Scott probably the same thing. Like he's like double the field, those guys. So maybe that led into it, right? You don't have to go like 50% to get double those guys. So maybe he ended up spreading it around more. That's probably what went into it if I had to guess. But one of those weeks, man. It's like you said, you either had Na or you didn't, and you were just competing for mid cashes. So.
And same thing with me as we go down to mine. I started off with Morikawa at the top, which, was pretty good. I got about 3x leverage on him. I, again, only had 2 golfers. I had Takumi Kanaya and Russell Knox out of my top 13 owned missed the cut. And I had an awful week. I had no Na. But the problem with me was not only did I have Kanaya and Knox, who were both in the range of Kevin Na, I had a couple of more guys like Taylor Gooch. He was 9 or 10% owned for me. And it basically took all of my non-ownership away. So for me, I had a bad week. Other than on FanDuel, I was very profitable on there. I think it's maybe just a little bit easier to build in this early season over there. So definitely take a note on that. We moved to the guys that did very well last week. We always want to check in and see how they got it done, if they're going above or below what we expect. So the winner of that $10 that I just saw, the Fantasy Bros, is his username there. He took Colin Morikawa and Daniel Berger as his top two. As you can see, it ended up in the top lineup. Only one missed cut in his top 11, so that's really, he basically nailed it. The only guy he missed was Abraham Answer. But Jeff, there it is. He had 26% Kevin Na. When you have 26% Na with 30 to 40% of Berger and Morikawa, you've got a wonderful chance to hit a good lineup, and this is what this guy did. And even you can see the guy below him, Wiley77, Matthew Wiley on Twitter, host of the Golflandia pod. Really, really nice guy. He came in second. You can see 30% Kevin Na. Even though he had 3 or 4 missed cuts, Jeff, he still was able to have a great week because of the overweight up top and Kevin Na.
Yeah, no, that's right. I forgot about that. I saw it last night that Matt came in second in this event. So shout out to Matt Wiley. That's awesome. Yeah. Just seeing him pop up here is funny because I completely flew my mind this morning. But yeah, 30% not, like you said. I mean, these guys went basically, Matt was like quadruple the field basically, yep. Which is, it's just such a good spot to be in when you get a sub 10% winner and you're that big. So, Horschel was a really good call too, though. And I saw a couple people ask me about Horschel. And again, one of those players I wish I could have got to, but I think Horschel almost helped as much because he was right up there as well in contention. Ate the chalk with Howell, which I really like at this event. It's just such a good value early in the season. And both these guys, though, obviously Fantasy Pros going with Morikawa and Berger. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Matt. Von Taylor in there too. Like, geez, he was really going after these veterans. So he really nailed it. That's awesome to see. But the not thing obviously put him over the top. Didn't read my article though. Didn't have Chris Kirk. So
no, he did. He's in the huge list of guys at 15%. Yep. So
he did have Chris Kirk. Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Ownership. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yep. So he was about, what, 10x the field there.
There's no way he read my article. But anyways, no, that's awesome. I'm just glad. It's always nice when you get one of the dudes in the industry who's been around and obviously gives out good free stuff too. So shout out to him. That's awesome.
For sure. And interesting to note, I was just taking a look at his player pool. He had 47 golfers, did Wiley, 54 for the Fantasy Bros. So sticking in that under 60 range, which is, I think, where you should be. And noticed a lot of guys on that 15% range, 15.3%, I think was the actual one. So interesting. He did a ton of guys there and he hit them all. That's the thing. Chris Kirk, Matt Jones, huge returns last week for those two guys. So well done to him. All right, let's go on to our lineups, Jeff. And certainly would have loved to have Kevin Na in any of them here. No doubt about it. My top lineup, well, it was a decent start until you got down to Doug Gim. And I was high on Michael Thompson. But even that switch, Jeff, if I had switched Michael Thompson in for Doug Gim, I missed the cash by 40 points. I hit pretty much every guy that made the cut that didn't hit value was in this lineup for me. Sebastian Munoz, Sungjae Im, Brendan Todd, none of them hit value or the expected value of 10x or better. If they had, of course, I'm the cash, but not the case for me this week.
Yeah, but it's interesting. We were both on Lahiri. I like the Lahiri play. Oh, I liked him after round 3.
He was good.
Yeah, it was going well. It's a good setup for Lahiri too at the Sony, right? But kind of a Kevin Na light kind of player, just can get hot with the putter and good in his approaches. Really kind of fell apart round 4. Gim was a huge disappointment. I really thought he'd start out well. Again, I wouldn't write off Doug Gim completely because he was such a good birdie machine at the end of the year. Sure. But that's disappointing for sure. It wrecked a lot of my lineups. Todd, I mean, that's the thing. I still think this is a solid lineup. I mean, these are the dudes we were talking about last week. It's just nobody really got hot with the putter here. I mean, Sungjae was terrible all week. Sungjae was terrible all around, but Morikawa didn't get, still not putting. Todd, obviously, we need more from, and yeah.
Yeah, and someone was asking me, this is my top lineup. This is what I do. This is my $400 lineup or whatever I play in that week, the 1,500, the 400, the 200, whatever's my top contest, I always show that lineup. I don't always put my best lineup in. That wouldn't be fair because, I make 300 a week. So it wouldn't be fair to just nitpick the best one, of course, just for transparency purposes, of course. Geoff, you said, as you mentioned, you went to Lahiri. You ended up getting 6 of 6, but I don't think this cash because of Sung J M scoring that 79 points and only getting you about 8x value. It would have been a struggle there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I popped this one up. It's always 6 of 6 as a don't cash. You just always sting me more, like the most. Sometimes it's just like, it's nice to just get that validation. It's like, oh, I got 6 of 6, guys. At least I got a min cash from this lineup. But
you did get a min cash? Okay, good.
No, I didn't. Yeah, but
you didn't?
No,
okay.
I didn't. No. That's what I'm saying. This one stings, because they definitely didn't. This was my best lineup though for single entry this week. Like you, here he's in there, and I like Zach Johnson. He didn't putt well. Henley was fine. I still think Henley was underpriced last week. It's really the only good play of the bunch. So I regret going to Sergio. I kind of knew that you just don't. The putter with Sergio, he's playing well, but the putter is just such a week-to-week thing. I just don't really feel like this is a great event to target him. He just felt underpriced. Kind of the same with Grillo, but those guys, this is what I get for targeting bad putters. I should have just gone with the bets who can light it up on the greens but this was...
Honestly, though, even looking at that lineup, it was really just Sungjae. I think by my calculation, you missed the cash line by about 30 points, and that's really the Sungjae. If Sungjae hits 101 points, 105 points, you cash there. So I fell down the Sungjae trap with you. It's okay, because guess what, Geoff? We get to do it again this week, fall down the trap again as we transition into the American Express. But before we do, we've got a great basketball game on top here on this holiday. Happy holiday to everybody out there that gets to celebrate and doesn't have to work. Check out the pinned tweet on @Awesemo_com to enter our NBA giveaway to win a free year of Awesemo Plus NBA. Just follow the instructions on the tweet and predict whether Steph Curry or LeBron James will score more points tonight. One random winner will be selected among the correct guesses. Make sure to check out the giveaway on our our Instagram handle. Excuse me, I messed those two words together as well for a chance to win a free month. Good luck. So really fun one there. Oh man, Steph Curry's been hot. So I'm going to go with Steph Curry as my pick this week. Are you going to go against me there, Geoff, or are you going to stick with Curry as well?
No, I'm not going to go against you. Not that I know anything about basketball or have been following it as hardcore as the DFS guys on Awesemo. So just listen to them over me. But no, I won't go against Steph either.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get Curry across the line here, and good luck on that tonight. Now let's talk about a little bit of a revamped and a better American Express this week. The American Express, I should say, as we've got no Pro-Am because of COVID. So what no Pro-Ams does is it removes the easiest golf course, La Quinta, and it brings in a pair of Patricks that when they found out it wasn't going to be a Pro-Am, decided to come and play here. Patrick Cantlay and Patrick Reed added to this field. We typically do get John Rahm, Geoff, so I'm not surprised there, but the top end of this field looks so much better coming in competing. The two courses that they will competing on, PGA West and the Nicklaus course, they are going to be easy, no doubt about it. The West course was about minus 1.7 under par last year, and the Nicklaus course about 2.5 under par. So still going to be super low scoring. It's a par 72, 7,100 yards, 62% fairways. But the number that really shocked me was 70% greens, Geoff, but they're also super small. They're only 5,000 square feet. So guys like Abraham Answer that, aim to, miss small might be a good bounce back spot for him this week. What else do you make of the courses here?
Yeah, no, short par fives, that pretty much everyone can kind of take advantage of and crush. The rough is just like a non-factor almost.
It's ugly too.
What's that?
It's ugly too here. It's dormant now in this part of where they are in the country. Yeah. Where they are in the country, they can't really keep up with the Bermuda, so they just let it go. So it's going to be an ugly brown, and then there's going to be the super green fairway. It kind of looks weird. Yeah,
it is. It's artificial. I mean, it's, you play golf in Arizona and Palm Springs a lot. I have. So they all kind of look like this, but the rough there just not a big deal at all, especially for the pros. So really comes down to, in my opinion, it helps out the guy, like you said, the guys with just really solid approach games and the putter. I mean, it's similar to last week, but almost like like even more so because there's no trees, there's no tree lines. Like you don't have to be really that accurate at all. You got to worry about some water here, which maybe is like can be a bigger factor, especially down the stretch. So, but it's really just target golf. I mean, if as long as you're not so terrible off the tee that you're like, getting yourself into like double and triples off the tee in a couple holes, then you can, if you fire with your irons and putter here, you're going to go. So as we found out with like Andrew Landry last year and Abraham Answer coming down the stretch, who, like you said, I mean, they just don't miss much. They hit a ton of greens and they make putts.
Especially when a course has such small greens like this, you go and see, okay, well, short, small greens, does that mean that they're really hard or are they really easy? And this is a resort course. Both of these are resort courses. So that means that they're pretty easy. In fact, top 3 easiest in terms of scrambling percentage and in terms of overall putting average. These are kind of some random stats, but I like to look at them as a whole rather than individual golfer. Just as a whole tournament, it was the easiest in terms of overall putting average, about 1.51 putts per green. So that means a lot of putts are being holed. I think you can take into account some bad golfers around the green and on the green this week and bump them up a little bit because of that fact. So like a couple of names there. So that's a good transition into talk about some of our first clicks. But before I do, I want to make you know, don't make a bet without shopping for the best odds first. Betting lines can change by the minute, can also vary greatly depending on which book you're using. So that's why it's important to use our Awesemo Odds Shopper tool to find the best line available on the game you're betting, or golfer in this sense, that you're betting on, and give you that edge you need to beat the house. Head on over to oddshopper.awesemo.com, where we compile the best bets available for every golfer, updated in real time. Sign up for free to track your bets and receive alerts when those lines move. So in our first clicks here this week, I started last one with Joaquin Niemann at 28-1, Jeff, because I just felt like in that field, he was priced at like number 6 or number 7 on the board. Yeah. And I felt like where his form was, it just wasn't fair. It ended up paying off very good value. He came in second, obviously, but on the each way, it was pretty good. So do you have this week's Joaquin Niemann for us?
Boy, I hope so. Hopefully I can have this week's Kevin Na, but for me, this is weird because John Rahm obviously withdrew, and so the odds have kind of changed here from the very morning. I bet Russell Henley first thing of plus 4,500.
Yeah, when did Rahm withdraw? Can you just? I should have said that at the top, and I apologize, but I'm literally just clicking on the odds and seeing he's gone.
Yeah, no, Rahm withdrew about an hour ago. It was just okay. I didn't even read the reason, but yeah. As someone who writes a lot on Monday morning for golf, I always kind of just try and refresh the WDs in case something happens as I'm writing. When I've forgotten to do that, it always seems to bite me. But anyways, he's out. So the odds have dropped on some of these guys. I hit Russell Henley at plus 45-1. I really thought that I was just too big at this type of event for Russell Henley, he just fires with his irons and putter, man. I mean, you put him on a course like this where just distance isn't a big deal. He can get mega hot. So plus 3,500. I don't think he's necessarily his biggest standout. If you can, well, here now, I'll go to my next guy. I'm not massively big on betting the favorites this week. I'm really interested in Scotty Scheffler and Matt Wolff, but I think the best. I'm giving Zach Johnson one more shot. I'm giving Zach Johnson one more shot. He's really trending well with his approaches. I've bet more Zach Johnson more times in like the last 5 weeks than I have in my entire life, and I guarantee if he doesn't play well this week, I probably will never bring him up again. But he is playing pretty well. His approaches are there. We saw him get hot with the putter before. This is a great course for him. We've seen veterans like Phil here in their late 40s challenge. ZJ can challenge here too. So I'm giving him one more. I think a plus like 6,000 plus 5,500. That's good price. I like that.
Yeah, and it's tough. Obviously, Rahm just withdrawing an hour ago, and when DraftKings and FanDuel are nice to us and give us salaries before, this is the type of risk that they take. Pricing the top guy. Granted, I still like the pricing even with him out of the tournament. They still went Cantlay at 11-1, which I think is a really good price there. If they had priced Cantlay at 10-4, we'd be talking about a whole different scenario. So it's still good pricing, even though we missed Rahm in there, and we'll of course get to that. But I think what it does is it did not change the odds much on a guy that I mentioned off the top that I think is in play for a bounce back week. Combined in just 2 rounds, he lost 4.2 strokes on and around the greens, but his ball striking for the past 2 weeks has been in form, and it's Abraham Answer. I mentioned at the top, I think he's a guy that aim small to miss small. I think that the smaller greens will help his putting, which has been terrible. And I hope that he finds the around the green to be a little bit easier here than it was at the Sony Open. So at 30-1, he's my quote-unquote Joaquin Niemann of the week. I like this range. I still think you get pretty good value on the top 5 and 10 bets. That's why I'm starting there. Of course, we love Patrick Cantlay on this show, and we probably like him a little bit more now that Rahm's not in the field, but he's also the odds favorite. And like you said, we don't love to bet odds favorite because we think we can get him at a better chance somewhere in the event, and typically that's true. So, okay, you went to Zach Johnson at the 55-1 range. A couple of other guys that I wanted to take a look at, especially one that played well last week. He's coming in here with 2 pretty good starts, 2 made cuts. He's 90-1. It's Cameron Davis. We talked about him last week as being a guy for DFS that's good. Now I'm going to turn over to the betting side. I think that he's a good value here, 90-1 this week. Yeah,
I definitely took a look at Cameron Davis. He's really talented. He absolutely kills it off the tee. Like, he could absolutely kill these par 5s. His approach game's a bit hit or miss, but if he gets it going, like he can putt as well. He reminds me a little bit of Cameron Champ. Like, when it all comes together, like he can go low. He could get to -25. So I think that's a good bet. I think it's a good risk. You're getting him at big odds. Realistically, if he plays well, like next week he'll be like 50-1. So it's a fine price to take a shot with a guy like that. I would say in that range, I would probably lean towards Doc Redman on this course. This is just such a good course for him. He hits every fairway, like legitimately hits every fairway. And his approach game, when it's firing, man, like we've seen, I mean, he shot like 62 at the Safeway, T3 at the Wyndham, T3 at Bermuda, or T4 there or something. So he is right there. Like he can get it going in these events. Realistically, those are like the 2 guys at that range that really popped out to me too. I don't mind Wyndham Clark, but Redmond and Davis were probably the top 2 in that range for me. So
yeah, I got to be honest. I think that probably we'll get a reset tonight, I'd assume, with the odds makers, but certainly seeing some really high prices on some of these guys, like even the 400 and 500 to ones. We don't see that at typical events unless we have a star in the field. As much as I want to consider Patrick Cantlay a star, I don't know that he's a star in terms of the entire PGA or golfing world. So I still think there are some values we can go deep dive in, of course, for a couple of minutes. But I want to ask you something about Doc Redman. I think that he does present great value at 110-1. How do you, in a situation like this, we haven't seen Doc Redman the last 2 weeks. The last time we saw him, the last 2 times we saw him, it wasn't that good. However, before that, it was great, right? So how do you measure that versus somebody like Joel Damon, who's 90-1? Last time we saw him, he came in 20th at the Mayakoba. So maybe says a little bit better recent form, but neither of them has played a professional golf event in the last month. Yeah. Actually, Damon played on the Outlaw Tour. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played against Max Homa, though, so.
So Redmond is a guy, like he's these top finishes that I was talking about. They're both coming off missed cuts. Like, he came into the Safeway off a miscut. T3 came into Bermuda off a miscut. So he has very much been, the consistency necessarily hasn't been as good as you'd like it, but like the upside when he gets the weekend, I mean, it's there. So I'm actually not that worried about it because I did kind of think about that, but. Realistically, like his last 8 events of 2020, he's got 3 top 5 finishes. Can't ask for much more than that. So I emphasize the upside a little bit more than the consistency. We'll see if that keeps playing out with Doc. If he, maybe it was just a blip, and maybe he is in bad form. But I'm willing to take a shot with him at these prices. So, actually, just that's interesting because I know I mentioned some trends at the start, but. We do have some trends, and this kind of works against Redmond, quite frankly. Okay. 10 of the last 11 winners here did play in one of the 2 opening season events in Hawaii. So the exception was like Bill Haas in 2015. So again, it's the same thing. Like if you played in one of the first couple events, they just seem to bring a little bit better form and a little bit more sharpness. It's just a trend. I mean, I'm still taking the value with a guy like Doc Redman. I'm not going to discount him that much because he didn't play the last couple weeks. Trends are meant to be broken too, so remember that. But it is something interesting. Like I said, most of the winners here the last few years have, last decade have played in Hawaii at least one event. So
Got a guy that's played in both Hawaii events that played pretty good in both of them. That is a former winner here that I clicked his name or had his name to be clicked this week on both the betting and DFS side. And then he came out at 200 to 1 odds. And it's Hudson Swafford. He's a guy that, maybe is a doppelganger for Harris English. Similar, and Patton Gazzire. You could throw all three of those Sea Island boys all together, all tall, all pretty good putters, pretty good players for that. So Hudson Swafford was my first pick, 200 to 1. Last week, the only thing that struggled was his irons. So I'm hoping maybe here a little bit of good feels from winning the event a couple of years ago. We'll kick the irons up, but everything else, Jeff, looked really good. So 200 to 1 for Hudson Swafford this week.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is basically the kind of price he won at where was it? Corrales? I can't even remember.
Corrales, yep.
Yeah, Corrales. So, yeah, easier course. He'll put it out there, dominate. He can dominate these par fives if his approach game is on. If it's not, he'll be terrible. But Swafford he's an upside type of player, right? He's kind of boom or bust. So, at those odds, I don't mind it. I actually bet another player, similar idea. I bet Danny Lee. He played in Sony Open last week. He missed the cut, but he still played there. His approaches were okay, though. I mean, he just sucked on the greens like he often does. But Danny Lee is the type of player similar to Hudson Swafford. Like you just won't think about him for like 10 weeks, and then you'll be like, oh, second place or something. Danny Lee's in the lead. He's in the final group all of a sudden. He's played well at TPC Sawgrass before. He's played well at some dye designs. Yep. Again, it's a complete shot in the dark, but he's 250 to 1. You just sprinkle a little cash on there. So that was kind of my sprinkle in that same range.
Fair enough. I got two, what I'll call my my poisons, or maybe you can come up with a better word, or maybe our chat can. My two absolute deep throws that I don't suspect anyone. Yeah. Yes. My vices. Yes. I got two of them this week. 400 to 1. They're both 400 to 1. It's Akshay Bhatia. We saw him play in another California event and get in the top 10, the 19-year-old. I don't think he made the cut at that big money classic, but I don't know how much I want to look into that. Just still, I know that he's coming in the top 10 in a California event. So I'll waste a little bit of money on him, and I'll just waste money on Will Gordon every single week because I don't think he'll ever make a cut again. But do you have anybody else? You said Danny Lee, he's in that range. Anybody else in that range that you're like, man, you know what? I'll throw, a couple of dollars on this guy because I think he's got a chance of breaking through.
Kelly Craft could be interesting. This is the type of event where, again, a guy like Kelly Craft can just throw it out there, just, hit every green. That might be my target down there, like in this range. Again, we're just talking about dart throws here, people. I'm not talking about like actually going nuts on him. You could go back to Lahiri as well. He's really riding his putter though. So, that could be drying up soon. I looked down here this morning. I know I normally have a couple guys here I'm like kind of big on, and maybe this is like the type of event, but I'm not super big on anyone down here, like any one name necessarily. The young guys are fine. I would probably lean towards the vets at this event. Maybe even a dude like, what's his name? Oh my God, now I lost him.
Well, there's a couple of guys like Brian Stewart. He played pretty good last week, as did Ryan Armour. Those guys are like 250 and 400 to 1. I don't know if they were.
Exactly. No, exactly. And those are I don't mind throwing them on this event. Like a couple of those guys will show up for sure. Jinjiang Zhang is the other dude who I was going to bring up. He's on a terrible miscut streak, but I mean his irons could get going too. Again, I'm not super high in any of these names. I'd probably rather go to like Armour or something like that, but just a name where, again, it's very similar to Landry. We know like Zhang can get hot with his irons. We know when he's in form like that, he can compete at a venue like this, but he's just coming in with a bunch of miscuts and no one's thinking about him. So could be the spot for him. Could be a spot for a guy like Armour. Definitely, at this event, you can't, it's almost worthwhile to do that, just to take like a portion of what you're going to do for your outrights and just say like 10% I'm allocated to guys over 300 to 1, because Landry coming in 5 miscuts in a row, 500 to 1. Long, I don't even know what his form was, but it's very similar, 500 to 1. Like legitimately, we have seen this happen, and those aren't the only examples here either. There's other ones. So
this is one of the events I mentioned last week that you can kind of suspect a shot in the dark winner will come. Now that's typically with 3 courses. Maybe we don't have that this year. Maybe we do get a normal winner because of that, but This one in Pebble Beach are ones where I'd be like, yeah, I think we've got a chance at a random winner because of the three course things.
I know the amateur thing like people bring up, but I really think it's more the courses. So I still think you'll see a very similar event. Like the Nicklaus setup is similar. Like it just brings so many different styles into play because all these guys can reach them in two. Everybody's got eagle opportunities. Guys can, smash the greens and hold the greens on pretty much every hole. So it just brings all the different players into play. It makes it a lot tougher to get separation, right?
It sure does. Now you mentioned a terrible missed cut streak for Zing Zoom Zhang. I'll raise you Zing Zoom Zhang and say Michael Kim, but Geoff, that was broken last week. So no, I'm not recommending you go bet Michael Kim at 1,500 to 1. This guy's a Fred Haskins Award winner. Like he was a really good golfer at the time. He won the John Deere Classic. He was really good.
He won the John Deere Classic by like 4 strokes too. Like
he dominated it. So, I mean, he
4 rounds in the 60s last week. 4 rounds in the 60s. Man.
All under par. I mean, I'm not.
How is this guy still on tour?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. When did he win the John Deere? Was it 2 years? This might be his last go because remember the COVID thing?
Special like career winners exemption this year.
What I think he's on. What I think it is he won in 2019. Last year was kind of a throwout year, right? Because of COVID. So he basically gets a third year because of that. He got lucky. He needs it. Made the cut last week, so maybe a top 40 bet on him because you can get like 10 to 1 on it. So just keep an eye out there.
I like it, man. That's the type of names we need this week. Like it's legitimately. So
yeah, all right. Let's move into our DFS talk.
Yeah, I'm 100% betting Michael Kim now.
Yes, I love it. I love all that. All right, now let's go to our DFS preview for the last 5 or 10 minutes here, as we've got a hockey coming up right after us at 4:00. Jake Harry on the mic talking about the hockey games. Jordan Klein will be behind the glass. This guy is just like, he's our Awesemo producer back there. Like that little tie-in. So here we go. Let's start off talking about Matthew Wolff. 9,500, I think he came on price. He was one of the guys. Reason why I want to talk about Wolff first is he's one of the guys that I think benefited from Rahm being priced in the field. As if Rahm wasn't priced in the field, I think this guy easily would have moved up a couple of spots. So if you want to fade the Patricks and the Koepka and the Finau, this guy, I think at 9,700, is a pretty good place to start your lineups with. And I think you could even pair him up with the guy right below him, Scotty Scheffler at 9,500, and you've got a really quality line. You got 7,700 left. I mean, you can even go Abraham Answer if you want to get jiggy with it, I guess. Sure. And now you got 7,200 to spend. So I think there's credence to probably fading Cantlay this week, which I hope brings down his ownership, and maybe I can go and get 15% and get 2x still.
Yeah, I don't. And look, I think being overweight Cantlay is fine for GPPs if you're doing like 100 lineups, whatever. I would rather be overweight Cantlay and then target, like you said, Wolff and Scheffler. You must have read my DFS article that I haven't even published yet, because it's basically what I wrote. Starting with Wolff and Scheffler makes way too much sense here for me. Both guys with good birdie rates. We just saw Wolff compete in the desert at the Shriners, an event he should have won. It's a similar style setup, man. Matt Wolff is going to, first of all, I very thinly probably prefer Scheffler this week, but like every time Matt Wolff is above 20 to 1 in odds, you should probably be betting him. That's my opinion of Matt Wolff right now. I think this guy's about to go on an absolute tear. I did just have this sense that, in my opinion, he is the top notch of the younger players. It just hasn't quite related or produced the amount of wins that we're about to see yet. And then part of that is he just hasn't been on tour that long, right? Yeah. But I think that this price for Matt Wolff is great. You should take advantage of it. And I completely agree on Scheffler. I'm not as high on Scheffler as I am Wolff, but he's a really quality player. He's played this course too. He's going to win at some point this year, in my opinion. Starting with those two players, absolutely. That's like I said, that's basically what I wrote up this morning. And I think for GPPs, you can think about Koepka, but I would just rather go overweight Cantlay as well.
You see the winners here. Now, take out John Rahm. He obviously won a couple of years ago, but you look at the recent winners, recent guys that have had success like Abraham Answer, Scotty Scheffler. What they are is they're superb off the tee. Not only do they hit it relatively far, Answer's maybe not that long off the tee. Scheffler is, though, but they pepper fairways. I mean, you look at Answer's fairways hit the last 2 weeks, and they're incredible. That's why I like going back to him. Then at 9,100 this week, he was 15% owned, Geoff. So I'm thinking coming off the missed cut, we could get him close to 10%, especially with everyone's fan favorite, Ricky Fowler, at 9,300.
Yeah.
outside of the world's top 50. Here he is priced at 9,300. Is it an easy fade for you, or are you intrigued?
I mean, I like people can keep taking shots with Ricky Fowler. I know our pal Awesemo Alex Baker is going to. And look, I love it. I love the fact he just keeps playing him, but I am just going to wait and see on Ricky. I just can't do it, man. Like, there's just nothing. And the thing is, there's nothing consistent with his game. It's like 1 week he's okay off the tee. The next week he loses 5 strokes. 1 week the irons are firing a bit. The next week he loses strokes on his approaches. Like, it's just like everything is in a different spot, and it's so discombobulated, man. Like, missing the cut at the Mayakoba. I just know. I'm with you. Like, you've already talked to me into Abraham Answer. I'm playing Answer in this range too. I love Answer. I think you made a good point with the ball striking last week. He really didn't play that poorly. If we're not going to discount a couple other guys, who putted poorly, I'm definitely not going to discount Answer. I think he'll be his ownership will be suppressed. People still like Henley, who I still like, but I'd go Answer over Fowler this week. Ricky will probably get it together in 2021, but like, don't ask me when. I just feel like people chasing now.
Really?
It's like, yeah, I don't know, but it's like the stocks, right? You don't have to buy the exact bottom in the stock market. You wait till there's a little bit of an uptrend and then you try to start buying, right? Like, let's just wait to see if Ricky Fowler can put in like a top 15. Let's just see. I mean, I have no problem waiting for that. That's just my take. Right. Like, people will still roster him this week.
And like, here's another reason why they're rostered.
You're not going to get 5% ownership, right? Like,
no, especially given this next fact. His last top 10, can you take a guess where it was?
Yeah, it was here last year, right?
Exactly. So that obviously is going to lead to more ownership. People love the guy. I understand why they love the guy. I love the guy. But for all those that are playing Ricky Fowler and say, listen, he's too good of a golfer, he's going to break through this year, I raise you Jordan Spieth. He has not broken through, and he's been terrible for 2.5, 3 years. It can happen, especially with a guy like Fowler and Spieth, who obviously relied on their putter through their best years. See what happens when that putter goes cold and they don't have the tee to green game to back it up. We saw Fowler and Spieth, both of those guys have tee to green games at a time. That's also when they were making every single putt. So they had confidence to say, I don't care where I put this on the green, just put it on the green and I'll make the putt. A little difference when that's not happening. So I'm out. I'd rather go to Answer, who I know is ball striking very good right now. Last 2 weeks we've seen that. So as much as I like Ricky and as much as I'm prone to play these golfers that used to be good, I won't be doing it with Ricky that much this week. I'll probably skip over him. Plenty of guys that we can play. Next one I want to talk about, though, is Phil Mickelson. I know he loves this course. I know he's an ambassador at this event, but 8,800, Jeff, come on. I'm not even going to have one share.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there with Phil either. If I want to take a veteran, just take Paul Casey. Yeah, I don't even know what Phil's been up to. I mean, I'm sure he's just doing his Phil thing, getting ready, being in shape.
Drinking his coffee for wellness.
Drinking his coffee for wellness, exactly. But you have Cameron Champ up there too. Like, yeah, I can't go there with Phil. No, I like Paul Casey. I like Champ.
Let's talk about Cameron Champ actually for a second.
Yeah, and I actually like both those guys. That's the other thing. Like, I actually didn't even think about Phil this week, but yeah, Champ I think is really interesting. I mean, T21 here last year. Champ is another player similar to Wolf. I mean, I would not be shocked if this guy won something big this year. I really feel like Cameron Champ is on the verge of joining elite status. Maybe not this year, but soon. And again, another player at 8,900 too, Jason. Like, I don't think he's going to be that heavily owned.
Nope. No, I don't think he will either. I think if he was priced down in that 7,800 range, everyone would try and target him. The one thing that I really like about what I've seen out of Cameron Champ's game, it's his iron play. We know he's going to be superb off the tee, right? But his iron play has significantly improved versus this time last year. Even out in Maui, didn't have great, but he still gained strokes against the field. Something he wasn't doing at all. Even though he was winning, he was relying on his putter and his off the tee game. Now that he's got the iron play in here, I think that should help him a lot more here this year. I like Cameron Champ. We know he loves California. Obviously, he has a win here too in this state. So, and he's from Sacramento area, I think. So, not a bad play there. And like you mentioned, last fact, I think he's going to be low owned. So, okay, let's we've got like maybe 2 or 3 more minutes here as we move down the board. Some names that are playing for the first time this year that I'm interested in. Sam Burns, he's back. Seems like a pretty good course for him. How about Sam Burns this week, Jeff?
I mean, I like Sam Burns too. He was hard to leave out of like the betting. Like I said, I went Zach Johnson over him, but this is a really quality young player. Like I would throw him again. He's not. I wouldn't throw him in the elite status of Wolf or even Champ, but he's a player I expect kind of like a Doc Redman to like pick up a win soon. I mean, he was so close a couple events in the fall. Kind of broke my heart at the Safeway. Really probably should have won that event. It's a good course for him. Putts better on Bermuda. There's a lot of upside here. It's his first event, but he was playing pretty well. Again, kind of like Redmond, like he was really popping with some high upside towards the end of 2020. And I just wouldn't wait on these players. Like I just would not wait. I wouldn't be like, oh, let's see if, like Ricky Fowler, fine, wait and see. Sam Burns and Doc Redmond, these guys are ready. Like these guys are young players ready to go. They kill it with their irons. They kill it off. Sam Burns kills it off the tee. It's a really good course for Sam Burns. So I think from a DFS perspective, I'd be in. Like I said, I haven't bet him yet. I mean, I could still add him, but I definitely 8,300. I'll take him over Kazire, who's riding an insanely hot putter. Probably take him over Siwoo. Yeah, he is my target here. I kind of like Adam Long, to be honest, but he's a pretty volatile player. I would say Burns is the pick of the bunch for me here too.
8,500 for Adam Long. I was hoping to be able to get him because he's been consistent, but 8,500 is like holy crime.
No hot fire, Adam Long. Like he is really impressive just in that. Like when he gets on these runs at these easy courses, man, that is expensive. One thing about Long is he'll probably keep his ownership down. So it is overpaying, but yeah.
The ever volatile, and we'll end on this guy. The ever volatile guy. He's got 3 missed cuts in his last 7 tries, but the last time we saw him, he was shooting 63 on Sunday at the Mayakoba Classic, a course that we probably don't think is a fit for him, but he got it done. It's Aaron Wise. Guys have been waiting all year for that to happen and had to wait until literally the last event of the year. Is that a turner of the page, and now we're going to get the type of elite form we thought he was going to have out of college, or is that just one of those collected his paycheck, his $500K, and we'll see him again in 2.5 months?
Oh God, Aaron Wise.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right?
Aaron Wise. I mean, I will be. I'll be happy to just fade him here. It's his first event.
Yep.
I think this is just what you're going to get with Aaron Wise. It's going to be inconsistent upside. Inconsistent, He'll miss cuts. He'll be like, "What are you doing? Why? Just what are you doing?" And then all of a sudden, it'll be like, T11 miscut second, which is basically what he's coming in with. But at the same time, first event of 2021, I'd rather go to Redmond here. Both guys are kind of coming in similar status. They haven't played yet. I just feel like Redmond a little bit better setup with the irons and the accuracy. Wise is still a little bit inaccurate off the tee, so I'm okay waiting for Wise, maybe target him down the road at like Pebble or something like that. But it could happen. Like I said, you look in this range, Wise and Redmond really stick out the most to me just in terms of like pure upside. So it is a veterans course. So, I mean, they're not the only ones with upside, but we're just talking about young players with like, pedigree. I would lean Redmond here, but Wise is, I guess, in the conversation. He's just not going to be on any of my lineups.
Fair enough. Well, that's going to do it for us here for the PGA DFS First Look Show for the American Express. We've got hockey on next. But before we go, if you guys aren't a member and want to know all of the plays that the entire staff here at Awesemo is going to be doing this week, then join us for our weekly PGA package starting at just $8.95. We also have an express package that you see on the bottom for $2.95. So stay tuned for the hockey show. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. We'll see you next week in sunny San Diego for the Farmers Insurance. Cheers, everybody.